Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Dear viewers, Assalamu alaikum. I'm your host Faisal Raza and you are watching Foresight. Viewers, Pakistan is a country with a remarkable diversity of wildlife and natural habitat. Having 195 mammal, 668 birds, 177 reptile species, 22 amphibians, 198 freshwater fishes and 5,000 species of invertebrates, while 5,700 species of flowering plants adding to the botanical beauty of the country. Pakistan's forest cover is only 5% as compared to the total land mass of the country, which is facing unprecedented challenges and threats from human activities such as deforestation, illegal logging, land conversions, pollution and other factors. Rapid deforestation and slow reforestation impacting severely on environment. As a consequence, country is losing its biodiversity, economy and related livelihoods. International environmental bodies recommend maintaining at least minimum 12% of the forest cover. Almost all 17 United Nations Sustainable Development Goals are aligned with forestry and so as Pakistan's economy. Today is the International Day of Biodiversity with a theme that be the part of plan. So whether we have the comprehensive plan to have reforestation, to attain 12%, at least minimum 12% of the forest cover, it's important for our next generations, particularly to retain this beautiful biodiversity and its related habitat. To talk on this very important subject, we have in our studios Muhammad Ibrahim Khan. He is the Director of Forest, Worldwide Fund for Nature, Pakistan. Most welcome to you, sir. Thank you very much for your arrival into the studios. Dr. Kashif Salik is also with us. He is the expert in forestry economics. He is the research fellow at Sustainable Development Policy Institute, Islamabad. Most welcome to you, Doctor. Thank you very much for your presence here. And online joining us, Dr. Ejaz Ahmad. He is the senior environmentalist. Most welcome to you, Doctor. Thank you very much for your presence online. My first question to you, Ibrahim sir, that Pakistan no doubt has a remarkable rich biodiversity, especially when we are talking about the high altitude, the riverine and the coastal forests. But it's on decline. What's the main factor behind?
Yeah, there are several reasons, but I would say that the population explosion is the major reason that our population is touching about 241 million. So that's a big issue, and that also lead to the demand for the forest and wood products. And our forests are not that much enough to produce that much wood and supply into the market. So according to an estimate, our forest can produce about 52 million cubic meter of timber and fuel wood. But our demand is 69 million. So there is a gap of 79 million cubic meter. So what happens that pressure builds on the forest resources and natural resources, and then the degradation starts, deforestation starts. Another reason is lack of proper management plans and their proper implementation. If in many cases we don't have proper management plans, scientific management plans for most of our land uses, but in some cases we don't implement. Where we have management plans, then we don't implement them properly. We often then overlook them, and we go for shortcuts and for timber harvesting and early timber and premature timber harvesting. That also leads to the degradation of our forest resources, especially our natural and commercial forest resources, or productive, I would say productive forest resources. Another reason is the prevailing poverty. You see that most of our forest resources are situated in the far off and far-flung areas of mountainous areas, and poverty exists there. Rather, they live below poverty line, and they depend for their livelihoods on those resources. So what happens then? The pressure builds, because in case of lack of alternatives, the pressure builds on the forest resources. So ultimately then that lead to deforestation.
Means
and degradation.
unnatural exploitation of these
yeah.
resources is also contributing into
Yes.
the deforestation.
Yes.
Dr. Kashif, isn't it the deforestation actually an open invitation to disasters like floods, landslides, the groundwater depletion, drying up the aquifers, affect habitat and loss of wild flora and fauna, and as a result, huge economic losses. Do you agree with it?
Yeah, of course. First of all, thank you very much for the invitation, and I must congratulate you to celebrate the World Biodiversity Day. I think it's a great opportunity to discuss the issues around the environment and climate change which is happening. So you mentioned about that what happened to our forest and its resultant impacts on as the floods and its impacts on the community. It's quite huge, of course, and it's quite documented in the literature that if you deforest your land, then there is the flood will come, the flash floods, and the land will slides, and landslides will be common. So once these things happen, I think the community, the most suffering part is that the community will suffer. And recently, I just went to the forest community and have interviews with them. So I found that one of the reasons Ibrahim told from my side is that there is a focus, less focus on afforestation efforts from the public side. And you have seen that over the last 5-10 years, there is a focus, and then there is a huge afforestation efforts or increase in the coverage of forest in Pakistan. We can witness that. So I think, of course, coming to your question, deforestation has a huge impact, but of course there is a window of opportunity for us to look into that matters. And for example, the biodiversity theme. Which
you are absolutely right, because we have seen in Nepal, in most of the other countries, how they have gained their forests once lost, and without the community engagement, it's totally impossible. That we have to, and it is very easy because we have to give them the real-time account of the benefits, that what are the benefits of having forests, and you are absolutely right. So Ibrahim sahab, Pakistan's overall forest cover is actually hovering around from the last many years between 4.8% to 5%, which is the lowest in the world, because we have to at least attain 12% of the forest area of the total land mass. So any concrete afforestation efforts underway across the country, because that is very important.
Actually, by default, Pakistan is forest deficient country. We have such a climatic conditions. We have dry and hyper dry climatic conditions in most of our country. So the tree cover is limited. We cannot go beyond the nature. So we cannot
we have mostly the hyper arid zones. That's why we are suffering a lot.
So, but whatever is there, so we have about 5 and above 5% forest cover, but whatever is there is very precious. It's natural ecosystems and natural habitat for most of our species, and they are very fragile and very sensitive ecosystems.
No doubt, yes.
So they are being degraded at a very fast rate, and but we have some potential also. Like we have rangeland, vast rangelands. We have vast irrigated agricultural land where we can improve the tree cover. So we should conserve, like we can conserve the existing natural forest and also promote the tree cover on the irrigated lands and on the rangelands. So efforts are happening in Pakistan, like there have been quite mega projects in the past and also which are going on, like the Billion Tree project in KP and the Green Pakistan program at national level, and there are several plantation projects and programs by
Means you are saying that we
NGOs.
have the challenges,
Yes, we
but
have.
those challenges actually are giving the opportunities
Yes.
to convert that into for the common good, particularly to have forest cover in the agriculture land
Yes.
areas. We have the
Yes.
opportunity there as well.
And we can reduce pressure on those natural forests. And another opportunity is now emerging in the shape of carbon markets.
Definitely. No
There
doubt.
is compliance market and there is voluntary carbon market. And you see the corporate sector and the industries, they are taking keen interest in offsetting their carbon emissions. And they are coming into this sector and they are now taking interest to raise.
That is again a
plantations.
very lucrative opportunity
Yes,
for Pakistan.
yeah,
So,
yes.
Dr. Kashif, why population growth, as Dr. Saab earlier said, that why population growth, housing, agri-expansion, pollution, then overgrazing, overharvesting, waterlogging, salinity, land conversion, soil erosion, desertification, enhancing deforestation. Why these are not being taken or have been taken seriously as a threat to country's economy?
Yeah, I think if we divide the two things, one
Because
is
we have seen a very lethargic approach towards this area.
Yeah, of course, particularly when we look into the mushrooming of these housing societies and other industrial state development in the agricultural land, which is very much alarming. And for my understanding that there is a less knowledge, particularly the land use, how the land use is changing over time. And of course, there is a political side in there. Where there's the different mafias, land mafias is there, and they are converting agricultural land into the housing societies and other industrial use. But the most important thing is that the knowledge. In Pakistan, knowledge about this land use change, there is no policy first of all, and second is that if there is some knowledge, that is some 10 years back, 4 years back. So similarly, the agriculture statistics. Right now, if you go to the website, we have the agriculture statistics of 2011. So we have no updated land use patterns, that how much agriculture land is there, how much is converted into the different other non-agriculture purposes. So that's a lack of knowledge is there. That's one reason. So if we have that knowledge, then second steps comes to the planning and policy making. So one thing which I think is that planning sometimes is missing because of the capacities issues. Capacity, we have no experts in terms of visualizing the physical changes in agricultural land, the trends changes in the rural areas, the interest of farmers in agriculture because it's changing. And my experience over the time is that our farm manager, who is actually the farmer, is above 40 years of age. So they have, and their youth or the young children has migrated to the cities and for other job, so they have no interest in agriculture. So over the time, with these social and economic and political changes.
This is another issue that
Yes.
even the students who are learning actually the agriculture, range management, forestry and all other topics, but they are not actually interested in working in field.
Yeah.
That is another issue,
Yes.
and we have to put focus on that as well. Your point well taken, Dr. Saab. Dr. Ejaz Saab, Pakistan, do you think that as the mangroves are really the jewel of the coastal area, and do you think that we have seen any sort of effort to regain mangroves in coastal areas in past, and but what's the main cause of their disappearance, particularly in the Indus Delta and in the other coastal regions?
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for having me. And this is, of course, a very important topic, especially related to forest in the scenario of climate change and other environmental disasters which are going on. Mangrove, fortunately, is a very good story as far as Pakistan is concerned, because there are a lot of efforts which have been actually put. The overall, if we see the covered area, of mangrove has already, I mean, like from last, if we see 3 to 4 decades, it has actually doubled, even more than double actually. It's now close to 200,000 hectares, according to the Sindh Forest Department, which was, I think, close to maybe 80,000 hectares in Pakistan. There are, of course, many challenges as far as the mangrove forest is concerned, because though there are efforts by the forest department, by the communities, by organizations like WWF, IUCN, local communities, fisher folk, but I think the challenge mainly is that the efforts that are being done, they are ruined by allocating the area, the land, to some industry, and that is where we see the challenge. The government, forest department took loan from Asian Development Bank some 3 4 decades ago, and they did massive plantation in the Indus Delta. But what happened in Port Custom Authority and the associated area was allocated to some industry. So whatever efforts were made, they actually were gone. The biggest challenge that mangrove has been facing is actually the availability of fresh water, because the mangroves are very specialized forests. They need fresh water as well as saline water. So at you see the river meeting the sea, there is an estuary which is formed and the mangrove go over there. And it is considered as the most productive ecosystem, forest ecosystem, because it supports a lot of biodiversity. So what happened?
Absolutely, you are absolutely right, Dr. Ejaz. How do the mangroves actually serve a crucial breeding ground for marine life? Because especially shrimps and fishes provide protection against the coastal erosion, sea surges, and defense against cyclones, because these are the defensive lines along with the coast, protecting the coastal communities as well. So having fisheries, so have the livelihoods as well, and contributing into the country's economy as well.
Well, I think the mangroves are a blessing in a sense that, as I mentioned earlier, that it is most productive ecosystem. The mangrove forest has a very specialized root system, and this root system actually is called pneumatophores, which actually they appear outside. It's open sort of like roots, and the tide during the day actually fluctuates, it moves, there is tide, there is no tide. Tide brings a lot of nutrients. There are phytoplankton, zooplanktons which are there, and the fish at the early stage of their life, and shrimps early stage of their life, they actually they get their food from these mangroves. And then due to this complex root system, big fish, the predators, they can hardly enter into that kind of the root system. So that provides a protection to the fish, to shrimps, to many other marine life at the early stage of their life. And then we have seen this is very, actually there are a lot of studies which show that during various cyclones, these mangroves, they actually act as a first line of defense against the cyclone pressure. They tolerate the pressure. And even in Indus Delta, there are people have witnessed that those areas where mangrove forests were cut, the community suffer more than those areas where the mangroves were still intact, because they break the pressure. They break the pressure of cyclone or wind. Even during the time of tsunami, the first tsunami, where we had a lot of losses of life in Indonesia, in Thailand, in Malaysia, in Japan, and even in then those areas where they had a good mangrove forest cover, the losses were very minimum as compared to those areas where they.
Absolutely right, because mangroves act as a breakwater when it comes to the cyclones or the high tides, sea surge as well. So, Ibrahim sahab, we need to save our precious natural heritage. There is no doubt about it. As many as Pakistan, the species which are existing in the natural habitat right now are either endangered or at the risk of extinction. So, due to the deforestation and resulting biodiversity loss, basically. So, what is the current status and what we have to do urgently to save this natural habitat, particularly these endangered species?
Yeah, our forests, of course, our forests are key habitats of different key species, biodiversity species. So, like I would mention that black bear, it's a very important species. Its habitat is in the dry and moist temperate forest ecosystems, and those forests are being degraded and deforested. And due to loss of habitat, they often visit human settlements. So once they visit human settlements, there could be some conflict, human-wildlife conflict, and as a result of conflict, they are also killed. So there have been 3-4 incidences of black bear killing in Mansehra. So and 3-4, I think 4-5 black bears along with their babies and mothers, so they were killed because of these conflicts. And this conflict actually is the result of the habitat loss, habitat degradation, and there is no option for them to go for their food and for their shelter.
Definitely, we have seen it in Magla Hill National Park as well.
Yes.
Like rhesus monkeys, like red fox, and sometimes we have other species who were, unfortunately, they are disturbed in their habitat and they straight away come into the cities and always killed. So, that is the issue there. Dr. Kashif sir, how do you see the forests as a vital source of medicinal plants? Because the health products and most of the time we have seen that their loss actually increases the risk of epidemics and pandemics. Limit the discovery of potential treatments for any disease, and that is again, if such scenario happens, it ultimately risks the national economy. So how do you see that?
I think this is another area where we have ignored this aspect. And this is linked to the indigenous knowledge. And if you move in the communities, the forest communities or other communities living close to the forest in the rangelands, you observe that the knowledge about the medicine, about these plants is declining. The young generation is no more interested in learning those, and they are busy in earning elsewhere in the outside the forest, because forest is not providing them the livelihood they actually need. So another thing is that the forestation projects which government or non-government organizations are planned, they are not included these medicinal plants or species to include in their programs. So this is the limitation, one of the gap in that program. They are mostly linked, worked on or developed projects on pine trees or these different.
And most of the times we have seen that illegal smuggling of these medicinal plants from the country towards the outside to any other destination, because the world is actually earning from our medicinal plants. So why we are not focusing on that?
Because both sides, one I talked about the community's focus has shifted largely, and also the focus by our departments which have their mandate to look into these matters. So that's actually need, sometimes the policy side is missing. If there is some person who is doing this illegal smuggling of these medicines, so there is no such laws to confiscate their product or these things. So I think there is a policy gap, but also the community. So that need to work together.
Do we have any laws available, anti-smuggling laws related to these
the medicinal plant? I think so, no. Up to my knowledge.
Dr. Ejaz, historically the forests have contributed as natural sinks to natural carbon sinks, and these actually help aquifers, the cooling of the atmosphere, minimizing the worst impacts of the climate change. As a vulnerable country, do you not think that Pakistan should focus on urgent reforestation? Along with that, when we are talking about mangroves particularly, most of the industrial cities are situated at the coastline. So Karachi is over there, Gwadar is emerging as a future city. So how do you see that, how much mangroves and the forest cover is necessary for an industrial city particularly?
Yeah, I think this is very important as far as Karachi is concerned because of the Indus River. The mangrove cover, unfortunately, we used to have 8 different species of mangrove some 50 years ago, but now only 4 species of mangrove forests are existing naturally. And the reason is that due to non-availability of fresh water after this Kotri barrage was constructed, the fresh water is not enough. So the saline water, these species who can tolerate saline environment, saline water, they are still surviving, but the other species are not surviving. So Karachi is a good place because of the Indus close to Karachi and the delta. But as far as Gwadar is concerned, the closest we can get the mangrove forest is the estuary which is formed in the Dasht River area at Jivni site at Panwan area. But Gwadar does not have the environment for the mangrove forest. But I think, as you mentioned, these are very important forests, and they can fetch, actually the carbon absorption capacity is very high because of mud flats and because of the soil and the plants that they have. And maybe Ibrahim Sahab can inform about the value, but it's more than double. The normal plants can absorb carbon dioxide. These mangrove forests can absorb more than double the carbon. And for this carbon trade, I think the Sindh Forest Department have already done some agreements with the international bodies, and they are earning some credits and they are earning some actual money for it. But this is something which is very important, and we need to consider. Unless we put the dollar value on our resources, the policies are not going to change. Because most of the policies are actually looking for earning foreign earnings, and if we don't have that kind of earning, policymakers don't consider that as a resource, be a forest, be a medical.
But we are not putting much focus on that, how much we are losing, how much dollars we are actually losing because of the loss of this biodiversity and the habitat which is there. So your point well taken, Dr. Ejaz. Dr. Kashif, when we are talking about deforestation, do you not think that it triggers the land degradation, impact the soil quality, the water availability and water quality as well, desertification, and leading to the emergence of the pests actually that damage the crops, imbalance the food production, affect the food security, and ultimately contribute to the socio-economic losses?
Yeah, of course, it's very important. According to estimate, about 27,000 hectare of land is deforested annually. So this is a huge challenge, and of course, when the land is open and naked, so there is prone to floods, and they also go for desertification. So it sometimes it's difficult to reverse back that process.
So this 20,000 is in Pakistan, or
27,000 in Pakistan?
In Pakistan, okay.
Yeah. So it's a huge. But efforts are there to improve the land under the forest, but still deforestation rate is quite high. So once this deforestation is there, the people people living in the down side, in the plain areas, they get flash floods, and also the riverine floods become more forceful and devastating for them. So I think for one side, when the flood is coming, and you have seen that over the time the intensity of flood has increased. So that intensity, for example, you say that if there is a flash flood, so if there is orchards or there is a crop in there, so that whole soil has eroded with that flash flood.
Obviously,
one time the person is a farmer, the next time he is jobless.
So, Ibrahim sahab, what can be done quickly to save this precious forest reserve? And along with that, we have seen that in Balochistan juniper forests, we have the riverine Indus Basin forest, as we are talking about mangroves, and protected areas, the national parks and the game reserves, which are actually designated to save that biodiversity that is existing over there. But unfortunately, undue human activities and hindrances and hiccups, and we are time and again using it for the industrial purpose or agriculture purpose, that is disturbing all of the biodiversity.
Yeah, as we mentioned earlier that encroachment by different township schemes or by different mining projects or by different agricultural projects, that's a main threat to the forest, natural forest ecosystems, and that we can reduce that by developing zonification and zonation mapping of these areas and proper land use planning policies, and then land use justifying different land uses other than forest. So that there should be a clear-cut policy on that side also. And another point is we should introduce alternative options for the dependent communities. The communities depend on these forests. If you don't give them options, then they will cut these trees and they will deforest the area. So there should be some alternative for them. And third, we should go for proper scientific management planning and their proper implementation. And fourth is allocation of proper resources to the forestry sector for implementation of those plans and for providing alternatives. So these are some of the solutions that we can start and we should start, because we cannot ignore.
So when Ibrahim Sahab is saying about the solutions and the policy framework on that, Dr. Do you think that we are utilizing some sort of geographical information system or the satellite systems or the artificial intelligence or all others, or sometimes we have some sort of a mapping or a grading of the different forest zones. So do we have some mechanisms available and we are scientifically gauging our forests and getting the information that yes, we have such sort of type of losses and how we have to recover it and how we have afforestation?
Yeah, absolutely. There is huge technologies are there. GIS remote sensing and a number of other technologies, AI based technologies is there right now. And one of the projects which is I'm heading in SDPI is that we actually understand the land use change after the DBTAP project. So we are using the GIS remote sensing and growing, understanding that what is the growth rate, what is the success rate, and also if it grows, what is the carbon sequestration potential of these forests. So these type of estimates are available, technologies are available, but how, and also the reports are available, conducted by WWF and many other
research and
but
data reports.
The question is that how we use them, because the users mostly they are non-technical. When this information goes to them, there is a typical situation, they reluctant to handle these things. So that my suggestion is that to increase the capacities of technical people in aligned departments or ministries, so that the proper planning can be made.
Actually, I think so that we have to do another program on that, because most of the times the scientific knowledge, which is in the scientific language, is not possible for a common man to translate it. And I think so that we should work on this area as well, that how to actually educate and aware the community in a very simple language and even in the local languages. That is very important to give them awareness. You are very right on that aspect. Dr. Ejaz, how do the human activities like overfishing, the pollution, especially the plastic pollution, and the coastal development, including the land reclamation, because land reclamation is the major problem in Karachi particularly, that is contributing to the marine biodiversity loss. So how do you see that? And you have rightly mentioned earlier about the mangroves, that how different construction projects and industrial projects are actually ruining the mangroves cover.
Yeah, I think it's very unfortunate, as mentioned earlier, that by Ibrahim sir, the land use plan, I think, is very important. We don't have any land use plan. If we allocate any land for forest and afforestation, that should be religiously followed. What happens is, most of the areas, posh areas near Karachi, the DHA, etc., they are on the reclaimed land. So they were part of the marine ecosystem, and ultimately, they have been converted into housing. And then the whole ecology of that area changed because of the mangroves. The migration of birds many birds used to come over there. And in addition to that, the polluted water of Karachi, untreated polluted water, 600 million gallon per day is entering into the coastal area and also into the marine water, and this is also disturbing and deteriorating the whole environment. So land use plan is very important. Unless we have land use plan and follow it religiously, that this is going to be staying there as such, there will be no change. Otherwise we will keep on doing afforestation schemes, but ultimately by 10 years or 15 years, that land will be converted into some industry or some housing scheme. So all the efforts and the money, the resources, they will be just to go into the waste. Similarly, I think in any planning process, we need to engage communities because they are majority of the time, especially in the north, they are the major user of forest products, and providing alternates to them is very important. If we don't provide them any alternate in winter, we know that there is many 3-4 feet of snow, so they need this fuel wood to burn, to heat up their rooms. So if we don't have any alternate, we cannot expect them to actually live in that kind of harsh environment. So I think this is very
right. Absolutely right. Dr. Kashif, can't we save forests through renewable or alternative energy sources? Because as Dr. rightly mentioned, that in winters when you have heavy snow, ultimately they have to heat up their homes, and for that the fuel wood is very important. So given inadequate electricity or gas supplies to far-flung rural areas result in actually the exploitation of the fuel wood. So that is going on at the unsustainable rate. So how do you see the renewables or the alternatives can do a trick?
Yeah, I think so. And if we work with the communities, you can find that there is a change. We observe that the people is, I'm not saying that completely stop using the wood for the fuel or for cooking, but they have alternatives because of education, because of more income, the people are now using cylinders, CNG cylinders and other options just like solars, and because the women or the children with education, they are less likely to use those wood for the cooking. So, but my another important thing which I like to highlight in your program is the mushroom growth of tourist spots in particularly in Galyat and other northern areas in Pakistan. If you travel in the night in the Murray, you can see on east side, you can see that there is a lights in each and every corner of the mountain, because there is a community, local communities living in there, but there is a mushroom growth of guest houses, and the people who can afford to build houses for themselves where they can come 1 or 2 peaks for in
and
the summer.
even the housing societies are now
Yes.
in the forest area right now,
So
and they are cutting the forest like
Yes.
that is very unfortunate, unjustified.
And this not only the changing the landscape of the area, but also the socio-cultural traditions of those areas.
Obviously,
So
obviously,
that's
obviously.
need to be
So
considered.
quickly, we have very run short of time. So isn't it the poor policy implementation, weak law enforcements, like gaps in the land use, as you have rightly mentioned, land use planning, weak institutional capacities, and a lack of sectoral coordination, another reason for deforestation and the huge hurdle in actually the reforestation?
I think if you take any issue other than the deforestation, in the coordination or lack of mechanism,
policy,
planning
management,
is there
administration,
in everywhere.
Enforcement.
And unfortunately, this area, afforestation and working on this biodiversity, this is the least priority area right now in Pakistan. Either in public, either in private. There is less funding from the donor agencies. There is less money in the public sector to invest on those areas.
Obviously. Ibrahim sahab, what about the importance of the indigenous trees in mainstreaming the ecosystem, the forest cover and biodiversity? Because given some of the invasive species, we have seen over the years that they have actually destroyed this green heritage, the local trees, species particularly, and creating health hazards as well. We have the example of the this wild papal mulberry in Islamabad. That was sprinkled and sprayed through the jets, aeroplanes, but for greenery or something else. But now they are actually like a disease they are spreading. And unfortunately, the asthma and the allergies and all others, along with that, they are actually killing other trees because they are not vanished if you were even trying to vanish it.
Yeah, very much true that we are now facing this issue, the alien invasive species. Our species are actually adopted for centuries to our system, to our climate, to our ecosystem, and they are well adapted, and the biodiversity accordingly adapted to those species. So if you introduce alien species, those native species are suppressed and they are eliminated. So then the biodiversity, ultimately biodiversity is then deteriorated. So we are facing like a problem of this mulberry in the margalas, and the another species like lantana is there.
Yes,
so it's another invasive species in occupying the whole of the margala forest. And also we are facing the problem of this muscat tree that was also introduced for a good reason, and then that became invasive species. And we have this problem of eucalyptus, poplar. Both of them are alien species, exotic species, though they are economically viable, but not good for our ecosystem.
Obviously. Your point well taken, Ibrahim sahab. Thank you. Dr. Ejaz sahab, can mainstreaming the adaptation and mitigation through ecological targeted initiatives covering afforestation and biodiversity conservation help increase the forest cover across the country?
Of course, I think this is very important, because there are, if we go, there are international commitments that we have actually agreed and committed in the form of SDGs. And, by going through this, I think we will not only achieve those international obligations. In addition, we have our own NDCs in which we have agreed to actually decrease our carbon footprint. Although it's not very high, but still we have some footprint. So we want to show the international communities that we are suffering from the disaster of climate change, but we are also very proactively taking part in many adaptation and mitigation related initiatives. So afforestation, and it is, I think the initiative is going on quite well, in the sense that throughout Pakistan, this Green Pakistan program is actively engaging the provincial forest departments and doing a lot of plantation. Even at the urban areas level, there is also this Milwaukee afforestation activities going on, and this is very important in a sense that the most of the urban areas are now becoming heat islands, and the temperature is rising, and these generally, if we see, there are more concrete jungles in the cities, in the urban environment. So we need to look into this aspect as well and keep our urban environment green as much as possible.
Definitely, you are absolutely right that we have to get rid of this concrete forest rather than we have to put the green forest there. So it is important. Thank you very much, Dr. Ejaz, for your time being online. Well elaborated. Thank you very much, Ibrahim Sahab, for being here in the studios. Thank you very much, Dr. Kashif, for your presence in the studios. Viewers, as you have just listen to our panelists, that it is very alarming thing that Pakistan is losing 27,000 hectares of the forest annually, and this is very alarming rate really, because we have already very short of the estimates, and we have not attained the 12%, but we are on decline in the forest rate actually. And then it's a good thing, a good news is that as Dr. Ejaz elaborated, that mangrove forest is actually growing, and it is growing at increasing at the rate that at least from 2,000 hectares to it will attain the 8,000 hectares. But alarming thing in that is that earlier we have at least 8 species of the mangroves forests existing at the coastline, but now only 4 left. So that is the main reason is that Karachi is an industrial city, at least 4 to 5 industrial estates over there, and the chemical effluents and the polluted water is actually straight away drained into the sea, and that is actually harming not only the marine life but also the mangrove forest as well. So panelists also said that 79 million cubic meter of the fuel wood is actually the demand annually, and that is rising actually. So for that matter, we have lots of policy gaps actually. The law enforcement is not there. Most of the laws are actually just stranded. We have to develop proper land use policy, that is very important, and have to get data available that how much land is actually used and for what purpose, and for that matter how much forest we have and how much reforestation is going on. So there is no knowledge existing about the medicinal plants, and unfortunately the smuggling of the medicinal plants is going on from Pakistan. That is again a precious resource for the health sector as well, and for Pakistan's economy. We have to save it at any cost. So we have to engage the communities effectively if we want to regain our forests and increase the forest cover at least what the world standard is. That is very high, but at least we have to attain that but of 12% and attain those sustainable development goals which we have already discussed about, that 17 of those goals are already aligned with forestry. So it is important that we have to adhere, because the greener Pakistan is the Pakistan's real future, and we have to save this precious resource of our biodiversity and the natural habitat for our future generations. This is today's Foresight. It's time to sign off. Allah Hafiz.